Welcome back to Retro ReWire. My name's JJ, and in today's episode, we're going to cover Dragon Slayer for the Sega Saturn. Now, the game was originally released in 1984 in Japan for various PC systems. Quite a few years later, it was remastered and it was a part of the Falcom Classics Collection Volume 1, and that was on the Sega Saturn, and it was released in 1997. Now, the reason why I want to talk about this game is because it's an early instance of a role-playing game, and some even accredit the game to being the first action RPG. So games like Zelda, possibly took some influence from this game. And I think part of the game's challenge lies in unraveling its gameplay mechanics, the rules, so to speak. Once you fully understand those rules, the game becomes very approachable, and you could have it beat within a few hours even. But before we get too deep into the game, let's go ahead and unbox it. Okay, so let's go ahead and unbox the Falcom Classics Collection Volume 1 for the Sega Saturn. Now, this is an exclusive for the Sega Saturn, and it was only released in Japan. This compilation includes 3 games. All 3 are remasters. We have Dragon Slayer, which is the game we're going to be covering today, Xanadu, and Ys. These are all Falcom games, of course. Let's go ahead and look at the back. We see 3 screenshots and some descriptions for each of the games. And then here we see the video CD card, little advertisement. Now, the video CD card improved video playback with certain games, as well as allowed movie playback of the video CDs. Now, video CDs was a popular movie format in various parts of Asia. And speaking of video CDs, this edition of the game includes a special CD which has some, I guess, like some small clips, interviews of the voice actors for Ys, as well as some movie clips for the showing you the Falcom store that was up in Tokyo during the late 90s. So it's kind of a neat little disc, but I'll focus on this disc another time because I just want to focus on Dragon Slayer. And then here we see the game disc, as well as some of the included manuals and inserts. Let me go ahead and move the game to the side. And first off, we see the spine card. And again, it has a little advertisement for the video CD card. And it was quite expensive. It was about $200. So definitely an expensive attachment. I think nowadays you can find it for about 40 bucks. And then we have the registration card. Pretty straightforward stuff there. Then we have the manual. Let's go ahead and open this up. We have our table of contents. Then we have some warnings. Then here in the first page, we just kind of see all the games in the collection and a little description for each of the games, because each of the games will have a Saturn mode, original mode, and then continue. All the in-game text is in English, so this is serving as a translation guide for non-English speakers, for Japanese speakers. And here, this is just going over like the memory card requirements for the game. I highly recommend that you have like a RAM card, a memory card, because the Saturn, it relies on a little lithium battery for internal saves, and if that battery dies, there go your saves. Then here it's just kind of explaining the button layout. And then right away, we go into Dragon Slayer. This paragraph here is just giving us some backstory, pretty much telling us that the hero, whose name is Kimi, is tasked with recovering the 4 crowns as well as the Dragon Slayer sword. And that's more or less what it's saying. Here we have a description of the little house, and that's like your little home base. And I'll go into that into detail once we dive into the game. Then this here, pretty straightforward. It's just explaining the HUD and the layout. It's all in English, so don't really have to worry about that. And then here, this bit is just kind of explaining how some of the mechanics of the game, you gain experience by killing enemies, and as you kill enemies and gain experience, you unlock magical spells which will aid you in your quest and so forth. Then here it's just kind of explaining the in-game menu. We have magic, save, load, and exit. I think that's pretty self-explanatory. And then here is a description of all the items in the game. There's a total of 8. And I'll go into this in greater detail once we dive into the game. And then this here is just talking about curses. As you unlock chests, you're gonna get cursed. If you go back home or through a little warp area, that's how you get rid of the curse. If you're cursed, you can't cast any magical spells. And then this is all the magic. These are all the magic spells. There's a total of 8. And I'll go into further detail once we dive into the game. And then over here, just getting some in-game hints. For example, in this screenshot, it's just kind of showing how you can move around blocks, and you can move them to enclose these little tombs, these little purple tombs, and that's where enemies spawn. And that's a good way to prevent enemies from attacking you, or you could even set it up into a way that you can easily farm them for experience. And then finally here, it's just showing the original mode screen layout. This is original mode, this is Saturn mode. I played the game in original mode just because I like seeing like all my stats on the side there. But yeah, then we'll turn the page and then it goes into Xanadu, but we'll cover that game a different time. Finally, we have this insert, and this insert, kind of same thing, giving us some more hints. I think the big one is just talking about these little ghosts that are throughout the game, and they'll just steal items and place them in a different area of the map. Sometimes they'll steal items that you have equipped. It can get annoying, but I guess it adds a little bit of extra challenge and depth to the game. Then just explanation for the magic again, and then here more item descriptions. But there's an important clue here, and uncovering this secret that the clue that we're given is vital to defeating the game, and I'll definitely go into greater detail once we dive into the game. And then finally, this is just adding some more backstory, pretty much saying that there was a hero 100 years ago that was on the verge of collecting all the 4 crowns. And as he was gaining the last crown, a 3-headed dragon appeared and made off with all the crowns as well as the sword. And thus the adventure began anew. But yeah, so that's the unboxing. Before we dive into some gameplay, let's go ahead and listen to a special narration which kind of explains how the game works, because I think it's super important to understand the rules of the game, because without knowing the rules, you know, how can we beat it? And I think that's one of the great challenges with this game. So let's go ahead and do that, and then we'll dive into some gameplay.
Recover the missing sword. Use the power of the sacred blue power stone to build up your strength. Make full use of your magic to unravel the great labyrinth. Defeat the 3-headed dragon and reclaim the 4 crowns. Finally, take the legendary sword, Dragon Slayer.
I'm going to be playing Dragon Slayer on the Victor Saturn Model 2. Okay, so let's start by doing a capture of the game running off of a CRT. This is the initial menu. We have East, Xanadu, and the game of the hour, Dragon Slayer. So I'll hit start and get this up and running. And here we have the game. So I'll hit start. We have Saturn, Original, and Continue. Let's go ahead and go into Saturn mode so we can see how this differs from Original mode, because we're going to be focusing on Original mode. So I'll hit start. And right away we see like this little intro, which only appears when you select Saturn mode. It doesn't show up when you hit PC mode. But we heard the narration earlier, so let's go ahead and bypass this and go directly into the game. And right away we see a few items. Now the original release of the game wasn't like this, so this is definitely easier than the original, more approachable. And then we have the all-important house. But this is pretty much Saturn mode. You have more visibility of the game area. The HUD is going to be up at the top. But let me go ahead and load up my save file. And here we go. original mode. As you see in original mode, the HUD is on the right hand side, and this is closer to the original PC release of the game. We have 8 magical abilities. We have jump, return, map, break, kick, freeze, flash, and fly. And you could set 2 spells to the A and B buttons respectively. So I'll do the first spell, jump to A, and return to B. And you could also cast magical abilities through this menu, but this is just a quick way. But anyhow, when you start off the game, you start with the jump spell. And as you're playing the game, sometimes you'll find like a dead end, and you might feel stuck, or you collected all the items and there's no way to break free. So you can cast that and it'll take you to a random part of the map. But yeah, that's that spell. Then we have the return spell, and that's always going to take you back to your little home base. So if you're collecting items, or if you want to deposit something into your house, that's a good way to a quick way to get back. But let's go ahead and go back into Magic. We have the map and break spells next. The map, pretty straightforward. It's going to bring up a map, and everything is color coded, and the legend explains what those colors mean. And usually when you start the game, you're always going to start in the upper left hand corner, but if you go up, it'll automatically bring you up towards the bottom, so it just kind of loops. But you can't do that initially because you need magical abilities in order to do that. And one magical ability that will help you with that is the break spell, because that's going to break blocks. Once you unlock this spell, the labyrinth becomes way easier to navigate through. So let's go back in here. We'll do kick and freeze. Now the kick spell is kind of nifty, and you won't have to worry about magic points, because like the break spell, it won't consume any magical points unless you kick the block into an enemy. The enemy will die, and then it will consume a magical point. And that's also a good way to keep your distance from certain enemies, because certain enemies will completely reset certain stats like strength, experience, and or take all your magical earns or points away. It'll break a block if there's other blocks in the way. Yeah, that's the kick spell. And then we have freeze. Let me find an enemy. Oh, there we go. I'll freeze him. Freeze them. And that. This is a good way to control an area. Enemies will remain frozen indefinitely until you just walk up to them and take them out. It's a sure way to control a zone or an immediate area. If you want to collect items and you're just being harassed by these enemies, you can just freeze them in place. And the final 2 spells, we have flash and fly. Now flash is gonna flash a mob of or any on-screen enemies. It'll just freeze them in place for a short amount of time. So it's a quick, it's a cool getaway spell. And then finally we have the fly spell, and that will allow you to freely roam the map and with great haste. And when you're in this mode, all the enemies are just kind of frozen in time until the spell wears off. And here we go, there's the crown. Oh, come on. Ah, ha ha ha. There we go, so I have that. Let me go to my magic spell and I'll return to my house. And then once I deposit the final crown, you can see that I have 3 crowns already in my house. So I'll go ahead and do that. And that's the end of the stage. And phase 2 or level 2 begins. And when you start a new level, all your stats reset. You lose your sword. You only have 1 magical ability. Magical abilities will increase as you kill enemies and gain experience. And that's pretty much how the magic works. There is a number of spells and how you use them that'll make your life a lot easier, but I'll leave that for you to figure out. Okay, so let's go ahead and go over the items. There are a total of 8 items. The first one being the key. and the 8th item being the Power Stone. Now, you're going to spend quite a bit of time going after these items, collecting these items. They're super important to beating the game, and as you delve further into the labyrinth, the items will be more scarce. But the first item is going to be the key. Pretty straightforward. It unlocks treasure chests. But be careful, because if you're just spamming and unlocking, it could lead to folly. Now, the next item is the ring, and the ring allows us to move stones as well as our house. Now, the benefit to moving the house is that we could collect items in a quicker manner, quicker fashion. Next up is the cross, and you can enclose things. If you have it equipped, enemies won't attack you, and they'll even run away. So it's a super helpful item. Next up, we have the Sacred Sword, the Dragon Slayer. I think that self-explanatory. The next up is the treasure chests, housing their secrets. And then we have the magical urns. These are super important because without them, we can't cast magic. Then we have the coins. Each coin will give you 500 hit points. The trick is bringing them back to your house to get an increase. And then we have the Sacred Blue Power Stone, which increases strength and hit points. And finally, this isn't mentioned, but there's the crowns. We need to collect the crowns in order to beat the levels in the game. Now wait. For the interested observer, I invite you to come and see. For all you dragon slayers, leave here at once. Now let's go back. There's a key, 8 items, with the final one being the Power Stone. Now, before I reveal the secret, let me go ahead and load up my original save file. As you can see, I had 9 hours, 15 minutes. My stats, hit points, experience, maxed out. I'm feeling powerful. I'm gonna go kill me a dragon. And as I go and attack the dragon, lo and behold, I am just not powerful enough. I would literally have to be here for days. There are 3 heads. As you guessed it, each head has its own set of hit points. And yeah, it's just not going to happen. I'm surrounded by houses and keys, as if the developers are just trolling the player. And in my desperation, I'm going to go ahead and load up the map. And there are no more treasure chests. So there's no way to get power stones to increase my strength. So essentially, I have failed. And I'm gonna go ahead and restarted my game, came back. Look at the strength. I have this strength. It's time to take down a dragon. It's time to ascend into the Hall of Champions and bask in the glory for all eternity. But in all seriousness, the strength stat is definitely the most important stat in the game. Hit points, those will replenish when you go back to your house, and you'll get as many hit points as much. It'll match your experience points, so you don't have to really worry. It's all about strength in this game. And the cover, the original cover, it has Kimmy looking like Arnold Schwarzenegger. It's telling you right there, strength is key. But now let's go ahead and reveal the secret. Have a look at this. Now pay close attention. What is it you see? Need a hint? Well, let's take a look. There's a key being the first item. The last and final 8th item is a power stone. That's right, as you guessed it, once you unlock, take 8 steps and you will reveal a power stone. Keep doing this and nothing but power stones. Okay, and now we're at the final part of the video, and we now know Dragon Slayer's great secret, which is taking 8 steps, going up to a chest, unlocking it, and getting a power stone. Now, pink power stone, but I think that gets the point across. Once you know this and execute it, the game is fairly easy and very approachable, and one that I do recommend. It is kind of a quirky game, very interesting. But the game, as of the time of this video, is exclusive to the Sega Saturn, the remastered version, and it's available in a number of editions. There's the standalone game, the greatest hits, the 2-disc set that we saw today, and then there's a special set containing volumes 1 and 2 of the Falcom Classics Collection, and that set is the most expensive of the lot. And as always, if you like the video, please like, share, comment, subscribe, turn on the notifications, all that good stuff. And once again, thank you for watching Retro ReWire. My name's JJ, and we'll see you soon. This was Dragon Slayer for the Sega Saturn. Great secret, which is taking 8 steps, or 8 steps up to,